Today, we're diving into the story of one of the most important materials ever created. We're talking about bronze. Now, this isn't just a story about new tools and weapons. This is about an alloy that literally forged entire civilizations. We're going to explore how this huge technological leap completely reshaped the ancient world, and we'll zoom in on one of its most incredible centers, ancient China. So let me ask you this. Before steel, before iron really took over, what was the one material that could build an empire, arm its soldiers, and even define its gods? You guessed it was bronze. This single invention gave rulers their power, armies their edge, and society its entire structure. So to really get why it was so important, we have to take a look at the world before it even existed. Before the Bronze Age, humanity's toolkit was, well, pretty limited. For thousands and thousands of years, we were working with stone and bone. And yeah, people would occasionally find these beautiful, shiny nuggets of pure copper, but it wasn't the game changer you might think it was. And this really gets to the heart of the problem they were facing. Stone worked, sure, but it shattered easily and it was a total pain to shape into anything complex. Copper, on the other hand, was a step up. You could at least hammer it into shape, but it was just too soft for a serious tool or a weapon. And even worse, if you tried to melt and cast it, you'd end up with this brittle, bubble-filled mess. Humanity had basically hit a technological ceiling, and they really needed a breakthrough. And that breakthrough, that something better, wasn't something they just found lying on the ground. No, it was invented. Bronze was humanity's very first high-tech material. It was born from a deliberate act of chemistry, a revolutionary recipe that was about to change absolutely everything. So what exactly is bronze? Here's the cool part. It's not a pure element you can just dig out of the ground. It's an alloy, which is just a fancy word for a mixture of metals. The classic recipe is taking copper and mixing in just a little bit of tin. And by combining these two relatively soft metals, ancient metallurgists created something that was way stronger and more useful than either one was on its own. And the jump in performance was just staggering. As you can see here, bronze is more than twice as hard as pure copper. That means sharper blades, more durable tools. But here's the real magic, the part that's almost counterintuitive. Adding tin to copper actually lowered its melting point. This made it so much easier to melt and work with using the kilns they had back then. It was just the perfect combination of strength and workability. So let's just nail this down. It's this trio of advantages that made bronze so huge. It was easier to melt, it was much, much harder, and this is key, it was perfect for casting. That last point unlocked a whole new world. Molten bronze flows almost like water, and it gets into every tiny, intricate detail of a mold without creating air bubbles. This meant you could suddenly create incredibly complex shapes and beautiful designs. And get this wasn't just guesswork or trial and error. Ancient Chinese metallurgists were documenting this stuff with unbelievable precision. This quote here is from the Kaogongju, which is the world's earliest known technical encyclopedia. Now, the word here for metal is sometimes translated as gold, but the text is actually laying out 6 very specific formulas or recipes for making bronze. This is just astounding. Seriously, look at this. They had specific copper to tin ratios for totally different purposes. You need a bell with a perfect resonant sound? Okay, that's a 6-to-1 ratio. Need a sword that's as hard as possible for battle? You change the recipe to 3-to-1. This is sophisticated material science happening 2,500 years ago. Incredible. And the technology they used to actually make these objects was just as brilliant. The piece mold method was an absolutely ingenious process. You'd start by sculpting a master model out of clay, then you'd create an outer mold in different sections and a smaller inner core if you wanted the object to be hollow. Then you'd assemble the whole thing like a complex 3D puzzle, and finally pour in the molten bronze. This technique is what allowed for all that amazing detail and complexity. Okay, so you've got this revolutionary new material and all this sophisticated technology. What do you do with it? Well, you solve the biggest problems of the age, right? And those problems basically came down to the big 3: defense, development, and devotion. First up, defense. An army equipped with bronze weapons had an almost unfair advantage. Bronze dagger axes, sharp swords, and especially mass-produced arrowheads completely changed the balance of power on the battlefield. This is what allowed early states to grow, to conquer, and to defend their territory like never before. Next up, development. Because while bronze was precious, it was also used for critical tools that helped build society. Bronze plowshares could break up tougher soil, which meant more food. Bronze axes could clear forests for new cities. Chisels allowed for more sophisticated woodwork and stone carving. I mean, these tools literally built a new world from the ground up. And finally, devotion. You could argue that the most prestigious, the most important use for bronze was in ritual. These objects weren't just fancy bowls and cups. People saw them as essential pieces of technology for communicating with gods and ancestors. Vessels like the ding for cooking offerings or the gui for holding grain were the sacred connection between the human world and the divine. And if you want to understand the sheer scale of this industry, just look at this number: almost 833 kilograms. That is the weight of a small car, cast in a single, incredibly ornate piece of bronze over 3,000 years ago. Just try to imagine the amount of resources, the manpower, and the technical skill that required. It's just staggering. So, this amazing technology created powerful weapons, better tools, and sacred objects. But, its most profound impact wasn't on the things people made, it was on society itself. Bronze didn't just cast objects, it cast a completely new social order. This quote right here perfectly captures that new reality. The number of bronze ding vessels you were allowed to own and use in your rituals was directly tied to your rank in society. Bronze became the physical manifestation of the social and political hierarchy. Your status was something everyone could literally see and count. So you can see how this all connects, right? To make bronze, you had to control the copper and tin mines and the trade routes. This created an incredibly powerful ruling class. You needed specialized artisans to actually work the metal, which created a new skilled middle class. And of course, you needed a military elite armed with the best bronze weapons to enforce this new world order. Society was quite literally cast in metal. And this era wasn't just some brief flash in the pan. We are talking about a 1,500-year epic. It started with early experiments, it reached the stunning peak of artistic and technical mastery, and then it began to transform as people started using bronze to record history with long inscriptions before it finally started to give way to the next big thing, the Age of Iron. So, when it's all said and done, what is the ultimate legacy of this incredible age? What did it leave behind that still matters to us today? Ultimately, bronze was a catalyst. You could think of it as a training ground for humanity. It taught us the complex, multi-step process of metallurgy, everything from mining and smelting to alloying and casting. It forced us to create complex supply chains and new social structures just to manage it all. It basically laid all the essential groundwork for the next great material that would change the world all over again: iron. And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. The Bronze Age shows us how a single material innovation can completely define an era and reshape humanity from top to bottom. So, what's our defining material today? Is it silicon? Plastic? Maybe carbon fiber? And what will the things we make from it say about our values, our power structures, and our own ingenuity 3,000 years from now?